So here's the thing. Not to be clichéified, but Wicked is one of my most favorite musicals of all time. I was lucky enough to get to see it on Broadway in 2019, and it was just so amazing. I cried for most of it, to the point where the stage was blurry tears for most of the play. So I was very excited to learn that they were doing a Wicked movie adaptation, and even more excited to see it and have it be so phenomenal and amazing and so well done and perfectly captures the essence of the original musical perfectly. So I'm stoked today to talk about my Wicked observations from part one, as there were so many Easter eggs and special moments that I would love to share with you today. Before we get started, I just wanted to say hello and welcome all. This is Eclectic Kelpi, where we dive into the treasure trove of fantastical media. And if you are holding space for the lyrics of Defying Gravity, fly into that subscribe button and come along on all of our adventures. Now let's dive into the episode. I wanted to start out with my most favorite Easter egg because the Clock of the Time Dragon is so iconic and has such big parts to play in the original book, but also in the play itself. And it kind of starts off because in the book it is this like sort of timekeeper and goes and travels and does puppet theater for like past, present, and future events. So it really does kind of like, the theory is that it's telling the story of Wicked as Wicked is playing. So it was really fun to be able to see that at Shiz, and they have here, there was a close-up of it after Popular, just before Elphaba sees Fiyero in the courtyard where she's tossing. So that was really fun, and I thought that was really special. The second one was really cool because I don't know if this was a artistic choice that they did intentionally, probably, because of course they would. There was at the end of The Wizard and I, when Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba is going off to run across the fields and is kind of like getting to the cliff's edge, and there is a rainbow off in the distance, but also the scene in the distance is all kind of like muted and gray and very like monochromatic, and it looks like it is to be the representation of over the rainbow. On the other side of that is Kansas, where obviously Dorothy is going to come from when she makes it to Oz in part two. But I thought that was really interesting because it does, I believe, have a little bit of the Somewhere Over the Rainbow motif to it as well. The next thing, which was one of the most perfect editing in this movie, was during Wizard and I as well, when Cynthia Erivo is singing De-Greenify You, and she's in this sort of like seated area, and there's these beautiful colored glass sort of like wind chime things, and they're turning around, and as she sings De-Greenify You, it actually the colors sort of make it look like she is just a natural skin color, and it just is so perfectly timed that it has to be like so intentional, and it was beautiful. Also because it's sort of like the I Want song in the musical, so it really is like her sort of like imagination and dreams and desires coming into fruition in her imagination, but also displayed for us, the viewers, to sort of get that connection with her and see her without green skin, which is something that she's desiring, just to be able to connect with the people around her, because prejudice is awful. Next, the 3 ruby slipper taps. Loved it. In Popular, Ariana Grande as Glinda does the 3 like slipper taps with the ruby slippers in her bedroom as she's singing to Elphaba, and it was just so cute because of course they don't have the rights to the ruby slippers, as like the copyright issues and public domain versus what MGM, who did The Wizard of Oz, they weren't able to use the ruby slippers, so it was really cool to have that moment where they kind of went around the rules a little bit, and it was wonderful. It was a wonderful moment to have that sort of Easter egg while also still maintaining the copyright issues. But I also really loved that they used the original silver slippers because I think that's really special. I like the silver slippers, but it was really cool that they were able to use the ruby slippers in some capacity, just as like a homage to the original Wizard of Oz. The other fun, crazy thing is in the Spotify released soundtrack, we can actually see that Jeff Goldblum is one of the singers listed in No One Mourns the Wicked, which is insane. So, because of course, spoilers, for anybody who doesn't know the musical or the book, the wizard is canonically Elphaba's birth biological father. So it's fun for anybody who doesn't already know that to then be able to see it on Spotify as Jeff Goldblum playing the wizard is listed as one of the primary singers. And of course he is the green bottle guy. And that's just really fun. I thought that was really cool. It is something fun to discover for those who don't already know that the wizard is Elphaba's father. So that was really exciting to see. And I got quite excited about that because it's just fun. It's fun to see all of the like things that they put into this production. Well, yes, it is 2 parts, and yes, we have to wait for a year before we get to go and see part 2 and have No Good Deed and have For Good, which I will cry immensely. But it's just really fun to see those little sort of foreshadowing pieces, especially for people who have not seen the musical or don't know the story or haven't read the books or been a part of this world until this movie came out. So it's pretty exciting to see. I also really love in No One Mourns the Wicked that they have that ding dong, the witch is dead, sort of at the beginning, just as the Munchkin children are running through the tulip fields back into Munchkinland, where then Glinda comes and sings No One Mourns the Wicked. It's just so cute. It's so fun having the little motifs. I've seen a lot of people also say that there is no like dead, so it's just ding dong, the witch is, in terms of the note progression, and I think that's really fun because, spoilers for part 2, again, she's not dead. Also loved the burning witch hat. I think that it's really fun because also, of course, we see at the very beginning, just as the flying monkeys are kind of going over the witch's castle, we see a caped figure on a horse riding away from the witch's castle, which is, I think, fairly indicative that Elphaba has survived and she's off and she's going to meet Fiyero elsewhere, because obviously they didn't do the sort of trapdoor thing, because we do see Fiyero as a scarecrow at the beginning walking with Dorothy and the lion and the Tin Man back to the Emerald City to present the witch's broom. So it'll just be interesting to see how they all connect that and what other changes and like stylistic choices they made from the play into doing the movie adaptation. So that will be really interesting and fun to see. And lastly, some fun lyrical changes that they made. So in Defying Gravity, instead of saying get her, they say kill her, which I think dramatically amplifies the stakes for Elphaba. Instead of now just imprisonment, she is being hunted for death. And I also am interested in the implications of that in terms of her talking with the wizard and having Wonderful, the song, where they have that the second interaction, and he asks her again to come into his sort of inner circle and be a part of what he's doing in terms of the larger government. So just the stakes are really interesting there with changing get her to kill her. The other one that's interesting is instead of in No One Mourns the Wicked, it's originally it's atrocious in when they're in the flashback of Elphaba being born. So the original line is supposed to be it's atrocious, but they changed it in the movie to it's uncanny, and I am not sure why they did that. I saw a creator, I'll try and link them if I can find this original argument. But it's to sort of incite this connectedness with the animals and kind of this like understanding of othering. And I kind of can see where that argument is coming from, in the sense of she is also being othered from birth and having prejudice put on her from birth, where of course the animals would also be feeling that. They would also understand that from birth, in the world that they are currently living in the climate they're living in, socially, with the wizard imposing these belief systems into their society. And then the last one for the lyric changes, I thought it was interesting, well, not necessarily lyric changes, but just line changes, was during the Dancing Through Life sequence. Fiyero already knows about the Ozdas Ballroom, and he is the one who's like initiating them going there, whereas in the original musical he asks, what's the most swankified place in town, and Glinda introduces him to the Ozdas Ballroom and says, oh, we can go there. And then he like runs with that and is like, yes, let's go to the Ozdas Ballroom, we'll meet there later tonight, and so on. The song continues, but it kind of does, I guess, leave space for him to kind of take more charge in the scene. It kind of, I guess, also gives him a little bit more agency in terms of like bringing things forth into the dynamic, and kind of like showcases more of his like leadership and drive, which I think will come later, obviously in part 2, when we see his dynamic with Elphaba sort of develop more, and also because we start to see him having more agency and more drive to have impact on the things around him, starting with the Lion Cub scene. Obviously he decides to do the right thing, and that's everything. That's it. And those were my wild, wicked observations. Thank you so much for watching. Everything with love, and we'll see you next time in the Treasure Trove. Bye!